Also in support.
Witnesses in opposition? Okay. There being none, is there a motion on the bill? Okay.
I won't. Oh, we've got opposition.
Oh, okay.
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 Sorry about that. Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation. Our concern here is simply that by requiring review of every single regulation, regardless of the scope, state agencies are going to be unable to do anything else. This is going to tie up agency resources in reviewing every single regulation, and that's why we're opposed.
Mr. Chairman, members, Shane Gussman on behalf of the Teamsters, United Food and Commercial Workers, the Amalgamated Transit Union, the California Conference of Machinists, all in opposition for the same reasons. We would like our regulators actually regulating rather than reviewing documents.
Mr. Chairman, Eduardo Martinez on behalf of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, California State Pipe Trades Council, and the Western States Council of Sheet Metal Workers in opposition for the reasons previously stated.
Kelly Green with the California Nurses Association for the reasons stated in opposition.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Lee Sandall with the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, and we are opposed to this legislation.
Janice Norman on behalf of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees for the reasons stated, also in opposition.
Stephanie Burry on behalf of SEIU Local 1000, representing 95,000 state employees in opposition.
Senator Weiland.
I won't repeat what I've said before. I think the same thing applies. The only comment I'd make is if you really want to find out about oppressive regulations, all you do is just go ask the companies, and then you can make a judgment. The companies know. You ask the average CEO or person in those companies, and they can just tell you right over the phone, and that doesn't cost much. But I move this bill. I think it's important in helping sustain and create more jobs in California.
There's a motion by Senator Weiland. Senator Huff, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's interesting. We live in a world governed by laws. We actually live in a world governed by cause and effect. And we discovered the law of gravity by looking around and seeing that when an apple fell off a tree, you know, it hit the ground. We see ourselves with one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. We see ourselves lagging in job creation behind the rest of the nation. We see businesses like Carl's Jr. that I referenced in the opening that are expanding in other states rather than here because it's easier, cheaper to do it there. These are the effects. We need to look at the cause because just as sure as the apple falling from the tree, we have a causal relationship here that's forcing that. You heard from the job creators here, and they told you that these regulations are strangling them. All my bill does is require the agencies to look back over the regulations that are there and give a report to the legislature. It doesn't require any action other than that. And frankly, how can a state agency run the regulations if they don't even know what's there? That's scary in itself. So this would force a review by January of 2013. It gives ample time for them to work it into their time and figure out what they're supposed to be doing anyway. Absent that, we continue to create job creation for attorneys who will find the exceptions, who will sue the businesses, and will just create that uncertainty that businesses abhor because uncertainty drives them to other places. This is a common sense bill. It takes nothing away from any other desire that's stated by the pro tem to rein in our regulations. I ask for your aye vote.
That's a close. Secretary, open the roll, please.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to rules. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Aye. Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon? Calderon, aye. Canella? Corbett? De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Padilla? Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Weiland? Aye. Weiland, aye. Yee.
Got 5. It's on call. You need 2 more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Senator Fuller, I'm sorry. Remember, Senator Fuller has SB 401, Regulation of Repeal Provisions, file item 11.
Mr. Chair and members, SB 401 will require that all new state regulations contain a 5-year sunset date that allows for reauthorization or amendment of the regulation in the year prior to the scheduled sunset date, only after a public hearing process. It is a very straightforward but simple bill in an attempt to bring about some level of regular, systematic regulatory review. Under SB 401, agencies would not have to go through a full regulatory process to reauthorize or amend their regulation, but they would hold a public hearing and check in with the agencies prior to reauthorization. We've heard a lot in recent weeks about check-in with the public. This bill provides an ongoing check-in with the public regarding California's regulatory system. By having at least 4 years' worth of data, a thorough cost-benefit analysis of the regulations could be performed, and a more clear picture of actual effects of the regulation could be developed. Under SB 401, all new regulations would be subject to the automatic public review necessary for cleanup and scrutiny of our regulatory system. And over time, taken together, this bill and other reforms presented here today would ensure that our state develops a more employer-friendly business climate in California.
Witnesses in support.
Good morning again. Now on. Good morning again. Randy Knott with the California Hotel and Lodging Association in support of this bill as well as the others presented this morning. Thank you.
Yes, Dorothy Rothrock, California Manufacturers Technology Association. We really appreciate the direction this bill is going and wholeheartedly support it. We would even agree to narrowing it a little bit and just making sure that if an interested party wants to make sure there's a hearing on these regulations, that would be the trigger for having the regulation heard. But again, it's very important that we get some more public scrutiny over regulations that have been enacted in the state. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Lori Nelson on behalf of the Consumer Specialty Products Association, and we support the regulatory review. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Anthony Thomas, representing the California Forestry Association. As an industry that most of our products goes into the very things that people visit and live in, such as hotels as well as the lodging industry, we support the legislation.
Silvio Ferrari with the California Building Industry Association, also in support of this bill.
Deborah Machos, California Independent Oil Marketers Association, strong support. Thank you.
Kevin Fry, representing the National Federation of Independent Businesses and Engineering and Utility Contractors Association, in support. Thank you.
Mr. Chamber of Members, Mark Vergat on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, also in support of the bill.
Kelly McKechnie on behalf of Western Growers in support of the bill.
Phil Vermeulen representing the engineering contractors and several other contractor associations, strong support.
Mark Smith on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies of California in strong support.
And again, Todd Bloomstein on behalf of the Southern California Contractors Association in support.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brad Deedy with the California Professional Association of Specialty Contractors, also in support.
Witnesses in opposition.
Mr. Chairman and members, I'm Bill McGavin with Sierra Club, California, in opposition. Let me start with a couple areas where I think we agree. We agree
that's a switch. Okay.
Well, thank you. Glad that caught your attention. We agree, first of all, that putting people back to work should be the first priority of the state of California. Secondly, we agree that the regulatory system should be smart, fair, and efficient. We disagree, I think, on causes. We are in a recession that was caused by rampant speculation and greed in the real estate and financial markets, which was facilitated by lack of regulation. I have not heard any credible evidence that the recession was caused by regulation, environmental or otherwise, in California or nationally. Nationally, it's being reported that corporate profits actually are way up. CEO pay is way up. What companies are not doing is hiring workers. And in California, we had a housing bust that was worse than it was in most of the country. Nevada was often held up as a model of light regulation, and Nevada's unemployment is worse than ours because their housing bust was also quite catastrophic. Taking an arbitrary approach, saying all regulations will be repealed after 5 years, is not a smart or efficient way to address our regulatory system. In our system, regulations can be adopted only with authority granted by this legislature and after an open and usually quite lengthy public process. And many of these rules are needed to protect health and safety and address threats to our air, water, precious natural resources, and to assure workplace safety. So to mandate an automatic repeal of these rules would run counter to the purposes that this legislature established in authorizing these safeguards, and would create uncertainty because all parties would be in doubt as to the future rules of compliance. So we oppose this one-size-fits-all approach to the regulatory process.
Mr. McGovern, let me try something. The bill as written says that the agency could simply extend it without having to go through a process. So they could, as an agency, say, we looked at regulation 123, we think it's a working regulation, and they could simply extend it. That's in the draft of the bill. So the idea that the regulation is automatically repealed, they would have to look at it, conclude that they liked it, and then extend it. They wouldn't have to go through another process to do that. So that would force them to look at it and say, this is doing well, to your point, and they could just vote to extend it with the same authority that they had.
And we do not oppose agencies reviewing their regulations. It's the automatic repeal date that we oppose.
But the repeal date would force that agency to look at the regulation and say, we've looked at it, we conclude that it's a good one, and they extend it. They wouldn't have to go through a drawn-out process in order to do that. It would be a simple, we agree, and they do it. So they would have already had the promulgation of the reg and all the things that go with it.
But as you know, there are other ways of having agencies review their regulations without putting it on an autopilot where the default is that you get a repeal.
What would that be?
Well, you've actually heard bills on that.
I'm saying, but you brought it up. What would that be? I'm saying if an agency decided that it wasn't going to hear a regulation, right? So let's say that I'm CARB and I decide, you know what, all my regulations are good and I'm not reviewing anything. This says, CARB, you look at it. If you decide you want to do it again, fine. But you do have to take an action to affirmatively renew it. It doesn't say, and they get a year within that time that they can opt out in terms of how to do it. But so you think every regulation that's ever done should stay in existence forever?
No, on the contrary. I said that you could require agencies to review their regulations.
That's what this bill does.
This bill also, though, has an automatic repeal.
Yeah, but if you don't have something in the legislation that has a tooth, then there's no incentive for the agency to do the review. Well, I mean, if there's no consequence for not following the rule, then why do you do it? If you said to an agency, I mean, right now an agency can review a regulation that they've done. They don't because there's no incentive.
Right. What I'm saying is you could require them to review the regulations.
But what if they don't?
Well, the question of how agencies are required to comply with laws passed by the legislature is a very good one.
You know, if I had a nickel for every report and regulation that we've asked agencies to do around here, I could retire and my kids could retire because absent there being a consequence, they simply don't. So this would say if there's something that's important to you, then you have to affirmatively vote to extend it. Doesn't even say they have to have a proceeding, just a majority vote of that committee. It could be placed on the agenda and done, and there's not a whole lot of regulation or things that go with it. And that agency would have to be responsible to monitor that it actually is doing the work. They don't have to promulgate the reg. They don't have to rewrite it. They just have to say reg 123 is extended, period, done. And if they don't do that, then the reg goes away. But that provides a consequence for not following the law. I think most of what you're going to see coming from the legislature, given the abject failure of so many of the agencies to follow through. We don't get the reports. They don't have to do them. There's no consequences if they don't. I mean, I've been in the legislature. I've actually zeroed out the budgets of agencies because they just decided we ain't doing the report. We don't care, because there's very little consequence for not following through. This just says you'll review your own regulation, and it's not every regulation every year because they don't all have the same date. You get a year in which to look at it before the bill is repealed. You would look at that, you'd make a finding at the staff level, and you'd say, we're going to place AB 123 back on the book and we'll extend it. Why wouldn't we do that?
Because the default is that the safeguards go away, and many of these safeguards are much too important to have that be the default.
But the default would be that the agency would follow the law and they would extend it.
Well, as you've pointed out, agencies don't always follow the law.
But they're much more applicable to follow the law when there's a consequence. I mean, we'll let it. I mean, we'll go around and we won't agree. But what your opposition was, to me, didn't counter with what you claim that you'd like the agencies to do.
And our interest is not in protecting the agency's prerogatives. It's in protecting the people of California and the resources. So those important values should not be at stake if an agency fails to do its job.
But what if the, and I'll let this go because I don't mean to have back and forth, and I apologize for it. What if it was, in fact, a bad regulation? And what if, in fact, the resources were being abused? What if, in fact, the people of California were being disadvantaged and the agency didn't want to admit that they were, in fact, following a bad regulation? Now it comes back, as we do on occasion, and it requires that we repeal a regulation in statute. I mean, one of the times that I saw some of that in my years in the Assembly was with the PUC. Much of what we did relative to the PUC was repealing regulations that they had imposed, because even when they acknowledged that it was stupid, they didn't want to admit their own stupidity. So we then had to try to go in with statute. Often statutes are much more complicated because they're statutes as opposed to regulations. I prefer regs when you have an agency that works well. Most of what happened in the energy crisis was in large part due to the regulatory agencies and not the legislature. But the problem becomes is that people don't have an opportunity to vote out or recall the PUC, so you end up where it comes back here to us. So my concern becomes is that if an agency is not going to be responsible enough to look at its own regs and say, by a majority vote one day with a 30-day notice, we're extending the bill to protect the environment, fine. And if they fail to do that, I'm sure you who follow those agencies would make sure that within the year that it was on their agenda, because you wouldn't let them fail to do it, because that's what you do every day.
Well, I actually agree with a lot of what you said about how difficult it is for the legislature to get involved in the regulations and repeal those, and it's preferable to have that delegated to the agencies. Sometimes the legislature does need to get involved. I just think that in terms of the bad regulations, and certainly I agree that there are some, it takes more of a surgical approach than this across the board, one size fits all.
Okay, and thank you. And I didn't mean to keep tying you up.
No, thank you.
Okay, the other witnesses in opposition.
Eduardo Martinez on behalf of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, California State Pipe Trades Council, and the Western States Council of Sheet Metal Workers, echoing the concerns of the Sierra Club in opposition.
Chair, members, Justin Malone, both California League of Conservation Voters, we understand your concerns. Generally, we support legislative oversight, and the legislature will have the opportunity to direct, review, or even abolition of a regulation through legislative oversight, and we believe that's much better than a meat cleaver approach to all regulations in the state. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, members, Bonnie Holmes, Jen with the American Lung Association in California, and we are also opposed to this across-the-board required sunset of all regulations, and just want to point out that many times in the regulatory process, the regulations phase in over a period of 5 or 10 years. And so obviously having a mandatory sunset would result in a huge amount of uncertainty and cause a lot of harm to that kind of process. And from where I sit, I see agencies doing a lot of review of regulations and revisions of regulations, and there's many examples of that. So I don't see this case where every regulation just sits there and is never reviewed over time. I'm sure there are examples, but I'm just saying from where I sit in terms of especially some recent actions at the Air Resources Board, there's been a lot of review and updating where it's been necessary. And the second thing, I just wanted to say that, again, across the board, environment, health and safety regulations save lives and improve public health and result in far more, many times more benefits than the cost of the regulations. So urge a no vote.
Mr. Chair and members, Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation, also here in opposition. We share many of the same concerns, and I would just again highlight that the process as it exists currently is a public process, and it's one that even under administrations that we didn't necessarily agree with and that promulgated regulations we didn't like, we have found that engaging with state agencies on regulations is incredibly effective and makes a big difference. And what this bill would do is it would eliminate that public process. In fact, what it would do is it would say on the back end, because it would automatically phase out these regulations, but it would create a public hearing. It would require a public hearing if the state agency wanted to keep the regulation in place, but it would eliminate the public hearing and would not require any public input for eliminating regulations. And so in many cases, the public wouldn't even know that protections that they were taking for granted had automatically disappeared without any public comment. So for those reasons, we are opposed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Shane Gussman on behalf of the Teamsters, United Food and Commercial Workers, Unite Here, and others in opposition. I would only point out to some of the issues that you raised, Mr. Chairman, that I haven't practiced in front of all agencies, but many agencies have, the public has the ability to petition the agency or the board or the department to review regulations, change regulations, or promulgate new ones, and we've done it ourselves many times. And with respect to the sort of automatic pilot policy that this bill would put forward, I think that could work in some instances, but you do leave it to the whim of the particular administration that is governing at that time. And they may not like certain regulations that serve the public very well for whatever reasons. It could be Democrat, could be Republican. For whatever reason, they might not like those regulations, and this would simply allow them, by doing nothing, to let them go away. And it's actually quite a process, as the previous speaker was saying, to go through the regulatory process. It's a public process that takes a long time, and to have it simply go away because we don't like it is a dangerous way to go, I think.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Lee Sandall, again with the union, with the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. The union feels the current regulatory process works well. The oversight provided by the Administrative Procedures Act protects business from over and duplicate regulation while allowing for an extensive public comment period for debating new proposed regulations. Again, we are opposed.
Kelly Green with the California Nurses Association. For all the reasons stated, we too are opposed. We have very strong concerns about the impact of an automatic repeal of regulations upon patients. Thank you.
Stephanie Burry on behalf of the SCIU Local 1000, representing many state employees who actually are the ones who draft and promulgate the regulations. And many times the regulations that are drafted or things that are caught up in the administration aren't actually sent to the legislature. Sometimes they get caught up in the politics of things, and I know that the legislature gets frustrated by those things, but those aren't necessarily the result of the actual process. And so I hope that the politics of things don't get caught up with the process.
Okay. Okay. Is Senator Weiland's going to move now? And since these bills are similar, can we just say ditto for the comments that you made before, and we'll take your motion? Senator Fuller, you can close on Senator Weiland's motion.
It's so difficult, but out of respect for the chair and the interrogation he conducted, which made the point
Okay.
I move the bill.
Thank you. Senator Fuller, you may close on your...
In closing, I'd just like to say thank you and to all, but this would be a very simple bill. At most, once a year, they would post the new regulations, the regulations a year before they were about to expire. They would have a conversation at best with businesses and industries that would like to come forward and improve their relationship and improve the business climate that they work in. I don't understand why state regulatory agencies wouldn't want that opportunity to improve their business relationships with their leaders of business and industry, and I don't understand why they wouldn't want to improve their own awareness of what the business and industry leaders believe are the problems created by the regulations. I do believe that the taxpayers do want a review, and I think this is the easiest way to do this. And I think we all know that safeguards that we value will not be the issue. For most of this, it will be how we achieve the best goal for all involved. It's a win-win situation. I know that many people here have supported the 7-year sunset on things like tax credits. So I do have to say that I believe that the argument that one-size-fits-all is a problem, this is not a one-size-fits-all bill. In closing, I'd like to thank the panel, and I ask for your support.
Secretary, call the roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Environmental Quality. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson? Aye. Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon? Canella? Corbett? De Leon? Evans? Hernandez? Padilla? Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee. Has 4.
That's 4, and we'll leave it on call. Senator Calderon. Oh, and Senator Fuller, I did not announce your 553 we're going to put over. So
actually, we're going to withdraw 553.
Okay. That'll be withdrawn, so noted, so people who might have been here for that one.
And I would like to join you on your SB 688. I think that bill will serve the purpose of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Calderon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and 2 other members. SB 617 updates California's Financial Integrity and State Managers Accountability Act with best practices that have emerged since 1983. Californians are deeply concerned for the efficiency and the accountability of all levels of government. Recent years have shown that even the best-intentioned administrative systems can break down if not routinely monitored. SB 617 merely instructs the Director of the Department of Finance to include oversight as a standard feature of state operations. This bill does not tell the Director how much monitoring should be structured. Instead, as with the 1983 law, the Director, with State Auditor and State Controller input, can recommend suitable controls to state agencies. I ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support? Been moved by Senator Strickland. Witnesses in opposition? Secretary, open the roll.
Motion is due pass and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Berryhill? Calderon?
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Canella? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Evans? Hernandez?
This is Calderon 617.
Aye. Hernandez, aye. Padilla?
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Wyland? Yee. That's 7 right now.
It's got 7. That's enough. I wonder if I want to take the bill up. What do you think I should do?
Anderson still has a bill, too.
Joel, do you want to take your...
Sir?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Get out to a few. We have to open up the whole thing. Why don't we open up some of the ones that are... Yeah.
real quick?
Yeah. So we're going to open up the roll a little bit on a couple of bills. Let me open up the roll on the consent calendar.
On consent, absent members Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, I. De Leon. Evans. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, I. Wyland. Yee. That's now 9-0.
9-0. We'll hold the roll open a little bit longer. Go to file item 103, Senator Liu.
Current vote is 7-0. Absent members Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, I. Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, I. De Leon. Evans. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, I. Wyland. That's 10-0.
10. We'll hold the roll open. Go to file item 5, 175, Senator Corbett.
Current vote is 5-2. Absent members Anderson.
No.
Anderson, no. Berryhill. Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, I. Canella. De Leon. Evans. It's now 6-3.
6-3. We'll hold that open. Senator Vargas's SB 252.
Current vote is 5-3. Absent members Berryhill. Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, I. Canella. Evans. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, I. It's now 7-3.
7-3. We'll hold the roll open. Calderon, your other was on consent. Senator Woke was on consent. Senator Huff, 396.
Current vote is 5-0. Absent members Berryhill, Canella, Corbett, De Leon, Evans, Hernandez, Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, I. Yee. It's now 6-0.
6-0. We'll hold the roll open. Senator Dutton, SB 400, file item 10.
Current vote is 3-0. Absent members Anderson.
Aye.
Anderson, I. Berryhill, Calderon, Canella, Corbett, De Leon, Evans, Hernandez, Strickland.
Aye.
Strickland, I. Yee.
5-0. We'll hold the roll open. Senator Fuller's SB 401. Senator Anderson, give me just a second. In fact, you're adding on to some too, so.
SB 401.
Yes.
Current vote is 4-0. Berryhill, Calderon, Canella, Corbett, De Leon, Evans, Hernandez, Padilla, Yee.
Aye.
Padilla, I.
Anderson, though?
Now 5-0. Fuller. It's a full
Fuller.
bill.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you say what item number?
Okay. Item number 11, SB 401, Fuller.
Do you want me to lift it again?
Okay.
Okay.
No.
Yee, no. Padilla, I. To no. It's now 4-2.
Okay. That was on consent. Okay. I think that'll do it. Senator Anderson, you're up.
Mr. Chair, Senators, this simple bill does three things. Reconfigures the Gambling Policy Advisory Committee and requires that it meet at least twice a year. This committee has not met in over 2 years. Enacts a 12-month statutory of limitations on filing a notice of violation of the Gambling Control Act. Currently, the law is open-ended, and some of the violations have not been dealt with for years and years. Finally, it clarifies current law so it is clear that third-party propositional players are not under the control of the gaming establishment, but rather the direct responsibility of the company that they're employed by. Here to testify is Ron Blonian with me this afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. I guess it is afternoon. Rod Blonian on behalf of the Commerce Club, Hollywood Park Casino, Lucky Chances, and others in support of the bill.
Witnesses in opposition?
Sylvia Solisha on behalf of the Hawaiian Gardens Casino in support.
The whole building we can get in the afternoon?
Wait for a minute.
Okay. It's been moved by Senator Strickland. Senator Anderson, you get to close.
I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Motion is do pass and re-refer to appropriations. Wright?
Aye.
Wright, I. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, I. Berryhill? Calderon?
Let me clarify, as amended.
With amended.
Yes.
With amendments, yeah.
sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Calderon, Canella, Corbett, De Leon, Evans, Hernandez, Hernandez, I. Padilla, Strickland, Strickland, I. Wyland, Wyland, I. Yee, Yee, I. Has 6.
Okay. Okay, it's got 6. We need one more. We'll hold the roll open. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what we do here.
The only step here is they're going to rules to waive jurisdiction.
Okay.
So put your bills on.
Okay, we're going to do this. The last 2 bills of mine I'm going to put over in the interest of time. We're going to open the roll one last time on those measures, and we'll close the roll. Why don't we start at the top again? File item number 1, SB 103.
Current vote is 10-0. Absent members, De Leon. Aye. De Leon, I. Evans. Wyland. Aye. 12-0.
12-0. That bill is out. File item number 4, SB 162, Anderson.
Current vote is 6-0. Absent members, Berryhill, Calderon, Canella, Corbett, De Leon. Aye. De Leon, I. Evans. Padilla. That now has, it's 7-0.
7-0. That bill is out. We'll go to SB 175, Corbett.
Current vote is 5-2. Absent members, Berryhill, Canella, De Leon. Aye. De Leon, I. Evans. That's 6-2.
6-2. We'll hold the roll open on that.
I'm sorry. It's 7. It's 7-3. It passes.
7-3. That bill is out. File item number 6, SB 252, Vargas.
Current vote is 7-3. Absent members, Berryhill.
No.
Berryhill, no. Canella, Evans. It's now 7-4.
7-4. That bill is out. So on consent, SB 396, file item 9, Huff.
Current vote is 6-0. Absent members, Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, I. Canella, Corbett, De Leon.
No.
De Leon, no. Evans, Hernandez. No. Hernandez, no. Yee. It's 7-2.
7-2. That bill is out.
No.
Corbett, no. 7-3.
No.
SB 400, Dutton.
Current vote is 5-0. Absent members, Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, I. Calderon. Canella. Corbett. De Leon.
No.
De Leon, no. Evans. Hernandez. Hernandez, no. Yee.
No.
Yee, no. 6-3. Corbett, no. Corbett, no. 6-4.
Mr. Chair, may I ask for reconsideration?
Reconsideration granted. 6-4. That measure fails today.
And granted without objection.
Without objection.
That's not his bill. It's a different bill.
Item number 11, Fuller.
Current vote is 4-2. Absent members, Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, I. Calderon. Canella. Corbett.
No.
Corbett, no. De Leon.
No.
De Leon, no. Evans. Evans, no. Hernandez. Hernandez, no. It's 5-6.
Call the absent members.
It's currently 5-6. Absent members, Calderon. Canella.
Aye.
Canella, I. It's now 6-6.
Okay, we'll hold the roll open for that one more time. Price was on, let's see, Calderon. We'll go to item 15. File item 15, SB 617.
Current vote is 7-0. Absent members, Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, I. Canella.
Aye.
Canella, I. De Leon.
Aye.
De Leon, I. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, I. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, I. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, I. 13-0.
13, that bill is out. File item 19, Corbett.
Current,
SB 861.
sorry. Current vote is 8-0. Absent members Berryhill.
No.
Berryhill, no. Calderon. Canella. Evans. Evans, aye. Padilla. 9-1.
9-1, that bill is out.
We have one still on call.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
item 10, we have another member that...
Okay. File item 10, SB 400 Dutton. Call the absent members.
Current vote is 6-4. Absent members Calderon. Canella.
Aye.
Canella, aye. That's 7-4. Oh, Evans, no. 7-5.
7-5, that bill is out. Yes. I think you voted on consent. Why don't we open consent one more time?
Consent is currently 9-0. Absent members De Leon.
Aye.
De Leon, aye. Evans. Aye. Evans, aye. Wyland. Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee. Aye. Yee, aye. 13-0.
13-0, the consent calendar is done. Item number 4, Anderson.
7-0.
7-0. Why don't we open that? Do we close that?
We did.
Oh, we I'm sorry. Okay. Well, you know what? Without objection, can I just open file item number 4? Okay. Well, we're trying. Okay.
File item 4, SB 162. It's currently 7-0. Absent members Berryhill.
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Calderon. Canella.
Aye.
Canella, aye. Corbett. Aye. Corbett, aye. Evans. Aye. Evans, aye. Padilla. 11-0.
11-0. That bill is out. Okay. That will.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, number 3, SB 152.
It was pulled.
That was pulled.
Put over.
And items number 7, Calderon, number 8, Walker, those are consent.
Yeah, it was consent.
I'd like number 9 as well.
Number 9, Huff. We'll open that. What's the secretary call the absent members?
It's currently 7-3. Absent members Canella.
Aye.
Canella, aye. Evans. No. Evans, no. Yee.
They're waiting for you to start.
Okay.
I mean, not like stress.
It's 8-4.
What about 12? Did we suspend some of this stuff, or you haven't?
She put item 12. She dropped.
Oh,
Yeah,
you dropped 12. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
About
I'm
your
sorry.
bills, Mr.
I'm gonna take them over. We ran a little bit late, so I'll be first next time.
All right. Is there any other bills that we voted on? I'd like to add on.
Well, no, I can't add on now. I kind of stretched it a little bit before, but yeah, the 2 I have, I'll take them up next week, and I'll work on that with rules.
Okay. So your measure...
Both of them, we didn't take them up. Neither of them, we didn't take them up. Okay. All right. Time to get us adjourned. Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned.